So what I'll do now is I'm going to share my screen just to show you guys a little bit of, oops, not that. Show you guys a little bit of the ways that Temple Contemporary tries to enable itself as a different type of organization. We created an advisory council that is comprised of high school students from the area, as well as civic and cultural leaders throughout the city of Philadelphia. So people like nurses and block captains, artists and activists, who each come together once a year to ask a question that they care deeply about, but do not understand or truly appreciate how that question could be actioned in the future. And so when the high school students and all these different people get together, there's about 35 of them, and they each bring their own question. And as we go around the table and these questions get aired, they're then debated. So these guys, along with others, raise all these different questions. And at the end, they vote on which question they feel has the greatest local relevance and international significance. So you can see here is just a snapshot of a recent advisory council meeting and the ways in which these various questions come to the surface. So after that voting process, it's up to Temple Contemporary's staff to creatively reimagine those questions into public programs for the city of Philadelphia. We've done a variety of projects working with the closed schools of Philadelphia back in 2013, creating projects like this at the Fair Hill School, which is just a half a mile northeast of Philadelphia, of Tyler School of Art and Architecture. Also working with questions of the disinvested housing stock of Philadelphia. This is a project that we did a number of years ago called Funeral for a Home. We're working with a community in the Mantua neighborhood of Philadelphia, in West Philadelphia, to pick out just one home that had been abandoned and was scheduled for demolition to have a funeral for it. And through that process, we worked with a range of different clergy and block captains and residents of that neighborhood who had been there for generations to come together to have a funeral for this one home, which culminated in a large meal for the residents and the people who came to the funeral itself. Also working with the school district of Philadelphia, trying to think through the many, like over 1,000 instruments that are all broken within the school district of Philadelphia's inventory, but currently had no money to fix them. And so by partnering with the music teachers of the school district, finding a way that we could bring those broken instruments together and then display them so that the city of Philadelphia could understand just the size of the problem. We then created a website where people from Philadelphia and elsewhere could adopt these instruments, and through that process raised enough money that all of the instruments could be performed as part of a large concert that was composed by David Lang, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning composer, for the instruments to be played in their broken state. And then immediately after the concert, all of those instruments were then repaired and or replaced and gifted back to the school district the following fall. And so it was working in this curatorial way in which questions that came out of the advisory council process were then able to be addressed in some way, was a curatorial position that was new to the Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, and they became quite attracted to it and approached us as to see if Temple Contemporary would be interested in beginning a regional regranting program for the city of Philadelphia. That process began in 2018, and what it essentially means is that the Warhol Foundation gifts Temple Contemporary $100,000 every year to then use 40% of that money to administer the fund, but to gift out 60% or $60,000 every year to visual artists working in the city of Philadelphia who want to create a collaborative project for various communities across the city of Philadelphia. We've been now in this process, we've had 2 rounds of funding that have gone through, and our next application deadline will be June 7th. So Cindy Stockton Moore will now be leading us through the application, and if you wanted to apply as a visual artist, the kinds of questions you may have to answer as part of the application. Thank you.
So what I was going to offer today is just a really abbreviated version of what an info session would be. Instead of getting through all of the nuts and bolts, I was just going to quickly introduce it so we'd have more time to hear about Yvonne's project and see a living example of the Velocity Fund in action. So as an overview, it's good to point out who is eligible to apply for one of these grants. The grants are in the amount of either $2,500 or $5,000. There's directly to Philadelphia artists. Individual visual artists can apply, but also groups, artist collectives, and artist-run spaces are also eligible. It's important that, it's essential that the artists live within Philadelphia, the city limits of Philadelphia. People who are not at this time eligible to apply are, is anyone who received a Velocity Fund grant last year. And the reason that is, so that would be for 2019 for this cycle, is because those grantees are eligible for a different fund called Added Velocity, which we won't get into today, but they're not eligible. Current students, so anyone who's working towards a degree currently, if you're going to graduate in this summer, then we've set the application deadline for June 7th in order to encourage you to apply. But if you will be in the school in the fall, either continuing or starting afresh, you are not eligible. Not-for-profits are not eligible to apply, but you are able to work with not-for-profits as an individual artist or collective. For-profit organizations, those same limitations apply. If you live outside of Philadelphia, you may not be a lead artist for a Velocity grant. And artists who are seeking to support their work with no public outcome, with no way of having this effect ripple back into the community, this is not the funding stream that's a good match either. So once the applications, and the application process is free, and once they come in, those applications are reviewed by an independent panel of artists and curators. Half of that panel consists of artists and curators from Philadelphia who are familiar with our community and the neighborhoods that you might be hoping to engage. And the other half of the panel are curators and other regranting partners from across the US who have the opportunity to see some of the great things that are going on here. We won't, what's important to note is that we don't decide, we being the Velocity team or Temple Contemporary, that it is this other panel, and we won't announce who that panel consists of until after the grantees are announced. This year, the applications are currently open and they'll be due June 7th. So there's still plenty of time to put together an idea. We'll notify people by August, and the application system goes through SlideRoom, which is an online portal that is free to sign up for. We have some links in the apply section if you're new to the process. And like I said, there's no charge for you to apply through SlideRoom. The time frame of Velocity is that all of the funded projects must occur within 1 calendar year. So that starts in September of 2020. So we're looking for projects that will take place after the awards have been announced and the funds given to the projects, and will end before September 2021. So the focus is on new work or on a distinctive phase of a project that can take place starting sometime after the fall. And so this process of applying is a good chance to kind of get an idea of what, we'll ask you questions about timelines or milestones along that to kind of keep this narrative arc of this 1-year time capsule for this particular project. So in the application, we'll be asking for things like contact information of the lead organizer, and to emphasize again, that will be a Philly-based artist. The proposal will consist of a series of questions that ask you to relate your project back to the visual arts. And so we define that as broadly as possible. And you'll find in the FAQ section a whole laundry list of possible outcomes for that. But if you have something you don't see on that list, email us and we'll talk through it. We'll also ask you what communities you want to engage. And those proposals, questions are meant to be short so that there's not much of, there's enough room for you to flesh out your idea, but that the process isn't prohibitive in that it's not a multi-page document. And what I want to point out is that the word count is not a word count on this, it's character counts. So some of the questions are only 500 characters and that's only really 3 or 4 sentences. So just make sure that as you're going through to be conscious of that distinction between character and word. We'll ask for some visuals, support materials and descriptions, and a budget form along with some biographies. When you go to the website, you'll see this apply section and it'll go through all of this and also direct you to the FAQ section or to come to a full info session if you have a lot of questions. But you can also email me with any specific questions. On the right is the apply button, which will take you right to the application. And another important thing about the website is we have listed all of the previously funded projects. So it's a good chance to kind of look through the diverse blend of possible projects that, that would kind of help get a better idea of what previous panels have selected and different ways that people are engaging with in Philadelphia. And I'll also give you a good idea of how different groups talk about their projects in different ways. So this proposal section that's over here is literally taken right from the proposal, and it's those 3 or 4 sentences that kind of just sort of help encapsulate what that could look like. But instead of going through that, we have Yvonne here to talk about her project. But oh, I have one more thing. When you go to our website tomorrow, it will look different than it looks today. Tomorrow we will be launching a COVID-19 Artist Emergency Relief Grant. And so when you go to the main page, you'll see that opportunity, which the first application deadline is coming up for April 27th, but below that is where you'll see the Velocity Fund. So we will have both of these opportunities available on the website starting tomorrow. And this is also so you can direct artists who may be interested or in need of one or the other. And I just want to point out that if you're an artist who is currently facing financial need because of the pandemic, you may apply for the COVID-19 Artist Emergency Relief Grant in addition to the Velocity Fund grant. These are not mutually exclusive grants. If you have genuine need and you also have a great idea, then please feel free to apply for both. If you have any questions, that's my email and it's on the website, but I wanted to breeze through, thank you, so that we can spend more time talking to Yvonne about her project. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Yvonne. I think I'm going to talk about my project Dish for a little bit. Dish is a project that I started in 2015 and it's an ongoing project that pretty much the usual community that I work with is actually the Chinatown community, especially with its youth. So Dish is a project that was actually inspired by the passing of my grandmother. A few years back when she passed away, one of my cousins during his eulogy said that there's this one dish that she always made for him when he went and visited, and like, you know, always it was like the best version he's ever had. And now that she's gone, like he'll never be able to taste it again. And at that point I was like thinking in my head, how come none of us had learned that from grandma? So Dish is a project where I engage with youth in various communities to have them kind of like think about what is a favorite dish that their elder makes for them, and actually learn from them how to make it. And it's kind of like a DIY little documentation project for them. I do really try to make it where it's very, basically it's a no budget kind of a project where I encourage them to use their own like smartphones to make the video. And then basically what I usually do is I hold a workshop first for people who are interested, and kind of pose like a list of questions as a kind of group brainstorming to see what are some of the questions that you would like to ask this person as you're learning how to make this dish. And then that way, when they do this documentation, this documentary, so to speak, not only are they just documenting the process of it, but also kind of learning the stories about these dishes. What is important about this project is an aspect of memory. It's not really about like famous family secret recipes that that pass down from generations, but really more about what are some of the dishes that have a specific like moment in time that really kind of is etched in your head in a way. Because I think a lot of times that's what food does, is that you know, I remember my grandpa's stir-fried rice and egg drop corn soup, and it's not like it's the best version, but because of the situation I was in at that time in my childhood and what it meant to me, that was like what was memorable about the dishes, not necessarily that it was like a family heirloom recipe or anything. So the dishes that I have gathered, I started this project in 2015, kind of slowly working with the community whenever I can. And so the dishes that I gather are not necessarily like, you know, really fancy dishes, but they're actually very, very much like home cooked meals that you usually don't see in restaurants. Like say if it's a Chinese restaurant or a Vietnamese restaurant, it's not something that you would usually see. So it was really kind of nice because I also have the participants to kind of like talk a little bit about write a little bit about their experience while doing the project or about the dish. And it's also really fun to see how they interact with the elders that they made these dishes. So in 2018, the first Velocity Fund started, one of my friends, Dave Q, I was thinking about applying with just Dish alone, but then my friend Dave Q came along, who's also not a social practice artist in town, came and said, hey, what about we collaborate? I have this idea of making these dishes into meal kits. So we kind of went back and forth and debating like, you know, what does this meal kit mean and how do we make it where it's not just something that people buy, like with Blue Apron or all the other kind of like meal kits out there. So we came up with a plan where we sell these meal kits as pay as you wish, but having people understand that the money that they pay for these meal kits will go towards money to fund meal kits for population with food need. As we worked through this process, what was interesting was that start trying to actually pinpoint like what that meant for us in terms of population with food need. And ultimately, we actually got in touch with what's the high school name? There's this agricultural high school up in Germantown. It's like one of the top agricultural high schools in the nation, and they have their student population is majority African American and Hispanics, and definitely there's a big population in that school that is, you know, considered below poverty line. But they do have a science food class, which actually made this even better because then what we're doing is we're giving them, with the money that we made from the meal kits, we bought the produce for it and then also gave them the recipes so that they were experiencing these meals that were not only something that they've never done before, but also was more of a cross-cultural experience. So we have these kids making wontons and jjajangmian, which is a noodle dish in Chinese. And also they were incorporating into a classroom setting. They're also learning actually a different way of cooking as well, as opposed to usually what they would learn in their class. So their teacher was really excited about it. And the meal kit itself, me and Dave Q, we put the meal kits together with Co-op 1149, which is a food co-op down in South Philly, in the heart of South Philly. And they have a kitchen that we utilized. They're very generous about it. And so the meal kits we had, then people picked up the meal kits there, where we have everything vacuum packed and labeled and have the recipe cards in it. So it was kind of nice to see Dish, the project itself that is kind of ongoing, and I've been working on it for a few years, to have it where it becomes something else, but still actually be able to like keep the essence of it, and then also expose it to a different community, and being able to like contribute to that.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming here and sharing all of that with us. Is there any questions that anybody has, either for Yvonne or Rob or Cindy?
I have a question for Yvonne.
Mm-hmm.
When you mentioned that you had like DIY documentation of the process of learning recipes from their elders, what did that look like? Did you make like a video or something?
It became a video, and allow me to show you the website that I have specifically created for it. It is kind of a beta site because, again, you know, as artists, we all try to do things as cheap as possible. So it's not the most, let's see. So here's the website for it. And at this point, I still have it where it's kind of divided about with through like whether it's Eastern, Western. I still have to update quite a few, but the website itself gives you the bio of each person and then also the videos of it. So there's like all these different kind of like, there's some really, really good dishes, I have to say, and some of them are really simple. Here's me and my family where I actually interviewed my parents. So all of these dishes are kind of like, it can be used pretty much, they're basically like little segments of cooking shows where you can actually like see everyone's experience of it. I worked with Central High School a couple years back with some of the students there. I have still, Hannah right here is the only one right now that I have uploaded on the website. I still have to like organize and get the rest of the students onto the website. But this is kind of actually the product of Dish itself, as opposed to Dish the meal kit, where it's just meal kits to send out to people for people to try out, you know, different cuisines.
My other question is, you mentioned that you started this in 2015. Are you funded over multiple years, or did you get, like, when did you get the Velocity award?
So this started with, let's see, it started with an idea, and actually in 2015, I applied for a Leeway Foundation grant. Leeway Foundation, their project grant is usually about $2,500. So that was a grant that kind of kickstarted, but after that, it was pretty much, I tried to create it so that it really doesn't cost any money for me to do it. And I know that's like, it's really hard. And also for me, it's kind of an ongoing project because I have so many other things going on that like, I'm taking it slow. So it's like a way for me to slowly gather these things. So after that, I think with the Velocity Fund, that was in 2018, but that was specifically for the meal kit project, not for the Dish project itself. So it's like, this is a little branch off of the Dish project.
And I could piggyback onto that for just a second to say that since now running the Velocity Fund for a few years, and all the different communities that we've worked with, the project of Velocity Fund granting has caught the eye of the William Penn Foundation. So now there's a new initiative called Added Velocity, such that if, let's say a project is gaining momentum through its year of service to the communities of Philadelphia, and because of that momentum that's being built, the grantee wants to see a second year of programming created that would enlarge what they've so far been able to create with 1 year of Velocity Fund granting, that then they can apply for an added Velocity grant, which would make an additional grant of $15,000 to that individual artist to expand that project to maybe more communities in Philadelphia or deepen the impact into one community of Philadelphia. So it's the potential that a 1 year project could develop into a 2 year project with a total funding of $20,000.
Wow. Any other questions from the group? Yeah, Deidre?
I just have more of a comment than a question. That I was like, it was really great to hear about Yvonne's project because I actually got to experience it when I was at Rittenhouse, like
Oh yeah,
5 years ago or
that's
something.
that's another little branch off from it. That one was Dish, the
Yeah.
real Chinese food.
Uh,
Yeah, so that one was a friend of mine, another artist friend of mine. She used to do these guerrilla performance festivals. And so I was invited to do it. So that time she had the location, she set the location at Rittenhouse Square and for an entire week during lunchtime. So to me, it was kind of also site specific. So I decided to actually push a little food cart and provide homemade Chinese food for free for the entire week for during lunchtime. So every day I came in with like a main course and a small little appetizer, a different one. Let me see if I have, I think I was going to have a slideshow, but let me show you guys the pictures of it. So it was kind of giving people a taste of what actually home cooking is. And it was an interesting adventure because after 2 days we got kicked out of Rittenhouse Square. And so let's see. So here's me kind of like pushing a little cart every day. Every day I have a little like the menu. Some of them, if I need to heat up, I kind of heat it up while I'm there. And so in the lower left corner, you'll see that this is after getting kicked out of Rittenhouse Square. I'm just right outside of Rittenhouse Square, and basically it's just giving people free food to let them taste it. And like people were like really, really surprised because it's not the usual Chinese food they ever had before. And they were surprised actually, even though there are some of them that had kind of exotic ingredients in it, they were really like, it was really super tasty. It was edible.
so that was part of the bigger picture of the project.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it just was like another branch.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It was really nice to hear the background and how it developed. It kind
Oh,
of
thank you. Thank
tugged
you.
at my heartstrings there.
I mean,
So-
there are definitely times when I talk about it, I actually start crying. So I'm glad.
Yeah, I was like, stop. Okay, good.
And yeah, the one with my grandpa's like stir fry rice and egg drop soup. That I can't go in depth about that because it will make me cry. But
Okay.
yeah. But it was interesting doing the whole process of the dish with the Rittenhouse Square one because my truck was broken down at that point. So basically I took that cart onto SEPTA every day with all my ingredients in there and like pushed it to Rittenhouse Square and did my thing there. There were a few days actually I had friends that's like, okay, I'll drive you home or whatever. Let's put this in the back of our vehicle. But yeah, it was like a different version. And I kind of like doing that because the project dish itself can have like a lot of different layers to it. And I think because it's about food, because it's about memory, it's about family, that I think it's a really great way for people with various different backgrounds to connect with each other. And so I think there's a lot of that I can work off of with this project. And also I work with the community a lot. I've been involved with the Chinatown community for the last decade. So to me, it's like important that like that is also my inspiration as well, is like working with these people, with these constituents.
Can I ask what you do within the Chinatown community? Like how you are involved, or is it part of your living? Or
I'm part of the Philadelphia Chinatown Dragon Boat team. Currently, I'm the co-captain.
okay.
But the name is Philadelphia Chinatown, but actually we welcome anyone that wants to join. It's a cultural sport, so it's a way for us to, we want it to be a space where it is open to anyone and it's a safe space for anyone to be in there. So we have people not only from various like Asian communities, Southeast Asian communities, but we also have, I mean, white people, Jewish, you know, anyone that wants to join, that they can join. But it's really kind of through this cultural team sport to kind of have a safe space. And actually, we also have people from the LGBTQ community that's part of our team as well. So we definitely, because we have a few of the core team members that are also involved with Asian Americans United, that a lot of times we have youth that are in the their youth program that comes and joins for the summer as well. So we try to really, try to show them like what it means to have a safe space for everyone, and not just like the Asian or the immigrant community.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Any other questions, or does anybody else have any project that they want to share with the group?
Actually, a quick project. Rob was talking about the Added Velocity Fund. I just wanted to let everyone know that Venture Cafe is actually participating in an Added Velocity grant. We have artist talks that we present through Grizzly. That's kind of like on hiatus right now, but that is also a Added Velocity project. So yeah. And I just wanted to thank you so much, Yvonne, Cindy, and Rob, for presenting today. This was really great and very informative.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.